Captain Jake Morrison stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council chambers, watching as hundreds of alien beings filled the massive space around him. The crystal walls of Nexus Prime reflected light from dozens of different suns, creating patterns that hurt human eyes if stared at too long. Jake had been humanity's voice in this place for 7 years, and today felt different from all the others. The Vorthic speaker rose from its platform, its crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbow colors across the chamber. When it spoke, a translation device in Jake's ear turned the musical chimes into cold, mechanical words that made his blood freeze. The Council has reached a final decision regarding the human problem, the Vorthic announced. Humanity has shown aggressive tendencies that threaten galactic peace. Your species expands too quickly and acts without proper guidance from wiser civilizations. Jake kept his face calm, though his hands wanted to clench into fists. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Grant shifted in her seat, her datapad ready to record everything. Commander Alex Turner stood near the wall, his eyes constantly scanning for threats that might never come in this supposed place of peace. The Council demands immediate compliance with the following terms, the Vorthic continued. All human military forces must be disbanded within 90 standard days. All defensive installations in your home system must be destroyed. Human colonies will accept permanent Council oversight to ensure proper behavior. These terms are not negotiable. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of translation devices and the breathing of hundreds of different species. Jake felt the weight of every human life resting on his shoulders. 43 years ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Council with hope and excitement, believing they were becoming part of something greater than themselves. Jake stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Honored Council members, humanity has served faithfully as part of this organization. We have contributed to 17 peacekeeping missions, shared our technological advances freely, and followed all Council directives. What has changed to warrant such extreme measures? A Zephyrian delegate, its insect-like form clicking as it moved, responded with what passed for their species' version of laughter. Humans ask too many questions and think too independently. Your kind refuses to accept the natural order where older, wiser species guide younger ones. Dr. Grant stood up beside Jake, her voice steady but carrying an edge of anger. Our recent survey missions had discovered rare mineral deposits in several systems. The timing of these demands seems remarkably convenient for species who have shown interest in those same resources. The ancient Eldari representative, a being so old its skin looked like weathered stone, spoke without moving from its meditation pose. Humans see conspiracy where none exists. The Council acts only for galactic stability. Your species has proven unstable and unpredictable. Jake had heard these same arguments for months now, growing stronger each time. The 3 most powerful species in the Council had formed an alliance that controlled every major decision. Smaller species either agreed with them or stayed silent, too afraid to speak against the established order. We have been part of this Council for over 4 decades, Jake said, his voice growing stronger. In that time, we have never attacked another species, never broken a treaty, never refused a legitimate Council request. How exactly have we proven unstable? The Vorthic speaker's crystal body flashed brighter, a sign Jake had learned meant irritation. Your species questions authority, seeks individual solutions instead of collective ones, and refuses to accept limitations placed for your own good. The decision has been made. You have 72 hours to begin compliance. Commander. Turner stepped forward, his military bearing obvious even in the diplomatic setting. And if we refuse? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. The Eldari representative finally opened its ancient eyes, fixing Turner with a stare that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. Then the Council will take corrective measures to ensure galactic peace, it said simply. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. In all his years of diplomatic training, he had learned to read between the lines of alien speech patterns. Corrective measures meant military action. The Council was threatening war against humanity if they refused to surrender completely. Dr. Grant's datapad chimed softly as new information arrived. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. She leaned close to Jake and whispered, "Intelligence. Reports show Council fleet movements toward our outer colonies. They started moving before this meeting began." The realization hit Jake like a physical blow. This was not a negotiation or even an ultimatum. It was a formality before an invasion. The Council had already decided to move against humanity, regardless of their response. The only question was whether humans would surrender quietly or force them to take what they wanted by violence. Jake straightened his shoulders and looked around the chamber at the alien faces that had once seemed welcoming. Some looked uncomfortable with the proceedings, but none spoke up against the three dominant species. Fear ruled this place, not justice or wisdom. The human delegation requests time to consider these terms and consult with our government, Jake said formally. 72 hours, the Vorthik repeated. Not one moment longer. As the session ended and beings began filing out of the chamber, Jake noticed something that chilled him more than the threats. Several alien delegates approached the human section with expressions that looked like pity. They knew what was coming, and they were already saying goodbye. Commander Turner moved closer to Jake as they gathered their materials. "Sir, we need to get word back to Earth immediately. This is not going to end with diplomacy." Dr. Grant nodded grimly, her scientific mind already working through possibilities. The mineral surveys, the fleet movements, the timing of everything. They have been planning this for months, maybe years. Jake took one last look around the chamber that had been humanity's voice in galactic affairs. Tomorrow he would return, here to give the Council humanity's answer. But deep in his heart, he already knew that answer would not be what the aliens expected to hear. The age of human diplomacy was ending, and Jake Morrison feared what would have to take its place. The emergency session in Earth's command center felt like the calm before a hurricane. Admiral Ben Carter stood before the largest holographic display humanity had ever built, showing the positions of every known ship in human space and beyond. Red dots marked Council enforcement vessels that had appeared around human colonies in the past 24 hours, while blue dots showed Earth's defensive fleet scrambling to respond. Maya Rodriguez sat at her intelligence station, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards as data flowed in from secret sources across the galaxy. What she had discovered in the past day would change everything humanity thought they knew about the Galactic Council. Senator Paul Davis paced behind them, his civilian clothes looking out of place among the military uniforms filling the room. As Earth's elected representative, he still believed there might be a peaceful solution to the crisis, but the evidence mounting on the screens around him was making that hope seem foolish. "Maya, show them what you found," Admiral Carter said, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions that could save or doom their species. Maya's discovery appeared on the main screen, translated documents and communication intercepts that painted a horrifying picture. "The Council has done this before," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. 47 different species over the past 1,000 years. Each time, they wait until a species develops something valuable or grows too independent, and they create a crisis that justifies intervention. The documents showed the pattern clearly. The Korathi had developed advanced shielding technology before being forced to surrender their military and becoming a client state. The Nemari had discovered new forms of energy generation before Council forces occupied their worlds for their own protection. The Talani had questioned Council trade policies before their leadership was replaced with more cooperative representatives. They do not just want our resources, Maya continued. They want to break us completely. Turn humanity into another servant species that provides what they need while never threatening their control. Senator Davis stopped pacing and stared at the evidence. This cannot be legal under galactic law. There must be some authority we can appeal to. Admiral Carter's expression was grim. Senator, they are the authority. The Council creates galactic. Law enforces it and judges violations. There is no higher court to appeal to. The communication board lit up with an urgent message from Captain Morrison on Nexus Prime. His face appeared on screen, and everyone in the room could see the exhaustion and anger in his eyes. The situation here is getting worse, Morrison reported. Council security forces have restricted human movement in the diplomatic quarter. They claim it is for our protection, but we are effectively prisoners. More concerning, I am hearing reports of Council ships jamming communications around our colonies. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker rushed in from the communications room, his face pale with shock. Admiral, we have lost contact with the New Horizon, Parker announced. The passenger liner was traveling from Alpha Centauri to Earth with 342 civilians aboard. Last transmission showed a Council enforcement vessel demanding they stop for inspection. The room fell silent as everyone processed what this might mean. The New Horizon carried families, researchers, and students, people who had nothing to do with military or political decisions. If the Council was targeting civilian ships, the situation had moved far beyond diplomatic pressure. Admiral Carter's training took over, pushing aside the fear and anger that threatened to cloud his judgment. How long until we can get search and rescue ships to their last known position? 4 hours at best, Parker replied. But Admiral, there are 6 Council ships in that sector. If we send rescue vessels, it could be seen as an aggressive act. Senator, Davis stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts still fighting against the military reality surrounding them. We have to try negotiation first. Let me contact the Council directly and demand safe passage for our rescue ships. Even they cannot justify attacking civilians. The communication attempt took 30 minutes to arrange, with Council representatives claiming technical difficulties and scheduling conflicts. When the Vorthix speaker finally appeared on screen, its crystalline form seemed colder than ever. The vessel you mentioned violated restricted space and failed to comply with lawful inspection orders, the alien said without emotion. Appropriate measures were taken to ensure compliance. Senator Davis felt his diplomatic composure cracking. What measures? We demand to know the status of those passengers. Information regarding enforcement actions is classified for security purposes. The Council suggests humanity focus on compliance with yesterday's terms rather than questioning legitimate security operations. The connection ended abruptly, leaving the humans staring at a blank screen. In that moment, Senator Davis understood what the military officers had known from the beginning. They were not dealing with reasonable beings who could be negotiated with. They were facing predators who saw humanity as prey. Maya's workstation chimed with new intelligence, and her face went white as she read the incoming data. Admiral, we have confirmation. The New Horizon was destroyed with all hands. No survivors. The news hit the room like a physical blow. 342 innocent people, including children, murdered simply to send a message. Admiral, Carter felt something fundamental shift inside him, a change from soldier following orders to protector of his species, that Dr. Rachel White, who had been quietly working in the corner on classified projects, finally spoke up. Admiral, there are things we have not told the Council. Research projects they do not know about. If they want a war, we are not as helpless as they think. Admiral Carter nodded slowly. "Show me." The holographic display changed to show schematics for ships and weapons that officially did not exist. Stealth technology adapted from alien physics, quantum drives that could move ships faster than anything in the Council fleet, and weapons designed specifically to counter the advantages of superior numbers. "We have been preparing for this possibility for 5 years," Dr. White explained. "Not because we wanted war, but because we recognized the pattern Maya just showed us. Sooner or later, they were going to come for us." Colonel Parker added his own piece to the puzzle. Special operations teams have been in place around key Council facilities for months. "We can strike the supply lines, communication networks, and command centers whenever you give the order." Senator Davis looked around. The room at Faces that had transformed from diplomats and defenders into something harder and more dangerous. "You are talking about starting a war with the most powerful alliance in the galaxy." Admiral Carter's voice was quiet, but filled with absolute certainty. "Senator, they started this war when they murdered innocent civilians. We are just deciding whether to fight back or surrender." The debate that followed lasted hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. When Captain Narration's next message arrived, showing footage of the New Horizons wreckage floating in space with no survivors, the last arguments for peaceful solutions died. Admiral Carter activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice reaching every human ship, base, and colony across dozens of star systems. "All human forces, this is Admiral Carter. As of this moment, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We will defend ourselves and our people by any means necessary. The time for diplomacy has ended." Colonel Steve Parker crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath the Council's primary communication hub on Nexus Prime, watching his chronometer count down the final seconds. Around him, his team of 12 specialists waited in perfect silence, their faces hidden behind adaptive camouflage masks that shifted to match their surroundings. This was the moment when humanity would show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. 3 systems away, Captain Nicole Brooks sat in the command chair of the stealth ship Shadowrunner, one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. Her vessel hung invisible in space, just kilometers from a Council supply convoy, its quantum stealth generators bending light and sensor waves around the hull like water flowing around a stone. The aliens had no idea death was floating beside them. On Earth, Dr. Rachel White monitored her screens as dozens of similar operations prepared to launch simultaneously across the galaxy. For 5 years, her research teams had worked in secret, developing technologies that would give humanity advantages the Council could never expect. Today, those years of preparation would finally be tested in real combat. Admiral Carter's voice crackled through encrypted communications to all units. "All teams, execute Operation Thunderbolt. Show them what happens when they threaten human civilians." Colonel Parker's team moved with practiced precision through the Council facility. Their intelligence was perfect, gathered over months of careful observation and infiltration. The alien security systems were designed to stop conventional attacks, not humans who had studied every weakness and prepared specific countermeasures. The first explosion came from the power grid, plunging entire sections of Nexus Prime into darkness. Before backup systems could activate, Parker's demolition expert had already destroyed the primary communication arrays that connected the Council to their fleet commanders scattered across the galaxy. Captain Brooks watched her tactical display as the Council supply convoy began to panic. Their ships were heavily armed, but designed for fighting enemies they could see and predict. When her weapons officer fired the first quantum torpedoes, the alien vessels never even knew they were under attack until their hulls began tearing apart. The stealth technology worked perfectly. Council sensors showed empty space even as their ships exploded around them. The psychological effect was exactly what human planners had hoped for. confusion, fear, and the terrible realization that they were fighting an enemy unlike anything they had faced before. Similar attacks, launched across dozens of systems as human special forces struck at Council infrastructure with surgical precision. Communication relays, supply depots, and command centers disappeared in coordinated explosions that left the alien alliance struggling to understand what was happening to them. Admiral Carter monitored the operations from Earth's command center, watching as red enemy positions on his holographic display began winking out one by one. The Council had expected humanity to either surrender quietly or fight a conventional war using predictable tactics. They were learning that humans did neither. Dr. White's quantum drive ships began the second phase of the operation, evacuating human civilians from contested systems with speed that amazed even their own crews. The new drives could move ships across stellar distances in hours instead of days, allowing rapid deployment of forces where the Council least expected them. The alien response came within 6 hours, but it was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. Council forces moved to secure what they thought were humanity's most important facilities, only to find empty installations that exploded as soon as alien troops entered them. General Roy Campbell, coordinating the military response from his headquarters on Mars, smiled grimly as reports came in from across human space. They still think like a traditional empire, he told his staff. They want to capture infrastructure and hold territory. We are going to teach them that wars can be fought very differently. The lesson began when Captain Brooks and her stealth squadron struck at the Council's main fleet base in the Centauri sector. 15 heavily armed battleships sat in what their commanders thought was perfect security, protected by orbital defense platforms and early warning systems. The attack came from inside their own defensive perimeter. Human stealth ships had been hiding in the system for days, moving slowly and carefully to avoid detection. When they finally struck, the alien fleet found itself under attack from weapons that appeared to be firing from empty space. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it ended, the Council had lost most of their regional command structure, and the survivors were broadcasting panicked reports about invisible human ships that could strike anywhere without warning. Colonel Parker's team completed their mission on Nexus Prime by planting listening devices throughout the Council chambers before disappearing back into the station's maintenance systems. Within hours, they were aboard a rescue ship that had appeared from nowhere to extract them, leaving the aliens wondering how humans had penetrated their most secure facility. The psychological warfare was working better than anyone had hoped. Council forces began seeing human attacks everywhere, even when none existed. Their own sensor operators started reporting ghost contacts that might be stealth ships, leading to friendly fire incidents as nervous alien crews fired at shadows. Dr. White monitored the alien communication channels they had tapped, listening to increasingly desperate reports from Council commanders who could not understand how humans were striking so effectively with apparently inferior numbers. "They keep trying to find our main fleet," she reported to Admiral Carter. "They cannot accept that we are fighting without massive formations of battleships like they use." The truth was even simpler than the aliens could imagine. Humanity was not fighting to conquer territory or destroy the enemy completely. They were fighting to make the cost of attacking humans too high for the Council to accept. Every Council supply ship that disappeared meant resources that could not reach their frontline forces. Every communication hub that went dark meant confusion and delayed orders. Every successful human attack meant alien commanders who were afraid to take risks or make bold moves. Captain Brooks received new orders as her squadron prepared for their next mission. Intelligence had located a Council troop transport carrying soldiers to occupy the human colony on New Geneva. The ship held 5,000 alien warriors who believed they were going to be conquering a helpless human settlement. The attack came as the transport was entering the New Geneva system. Brooks' ships emerged from quantum stealth at point-blank range, their weapons already locked onto critical systems. The alien ship never had a chance to fight back or even call for help, but instead of destroying the transport completely, the human ships disabled its engines and weapons, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. Then Captain Brooks sent a message that would be heard throughout the Council fleet. "This is Captain Nicole Brooks of the Human Defense Force." Her voice carried clearly through the alien ship's communication system. "Your vessel has been disabled, but not destroyed. We could have killed everyone aboard, but chose not to. You came here to conquer innocent civilians. We suggest you reconsider whether attacking humanity is worth dying for." The message was broadcast on frequencies that reached every Council ship in the system, and from there it spread throughout their communication network. The psychological impact was devastating. Humans were not only winning, they were showing mercy to enemies who had shown none to human civilians. Admiral Carter watched the strategic situation develop with growing satisfaction. The Council's initial confidence was cracking as they realized they were fighting an enemy who refused to play by the established rules of galactic warfare. They expected us to mass our fleets and fight pitched battles with their superior numbers. "Would win," he explained to Senator Davis, who was watching the operations with amazement. "Instead, we are hitting them everywhere at once with small units they cannot track or predict." The final phase of Operation Thunderbolt came when human forces struck directly at the Council's core systems for the first time, using routes that alien charts said were impossible to navigate. Human ships appeared in supposedly secure sectors and began systematically destroying the infrastructure that kept the Council's empire functioning. The message was clear to anyone in the galaxy who was watching. Humanity would not submit quietly, and they possessed capabilities that made them far more dangerous than their numbers suggested. The age of easy conquest was over, and the Galactic Council was learning what it meant to face an enemy who refused to lose. Ambassador Alina Ross moved carefully through the shadowy corridors of the abandoned mining station in the Outer Rim, her diplomatic credentials long since discarded for simple survival gear. 6 months had passed since humanity abandoned the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was burning. What had started as the Council's attempt to force human submission had become something far larger and more dangerous. Behind her walked Captain Drake Wilson of the insectoid Chitheri, his 4 arms, carrying weapons that proved his species had finally chosen a side in the growing conflict. The Chitheri had suffered under Council trade restrictions for decades, forced to sell their advanced manufacturing capabilities for prices that barely sustained their hive worlds. The message from the Hydran delegation arrived this morning, Ilana said as they reached the station's conference room. 3 more species have agreed to join our alliance. The Council's brutality is driving entire civilizations to our cause. General Roy Campbell appeared on the holographic communicator, his image flickering slightly due to the encryption protocols that kept their conversations secure from Council intelligence. Around him, his staff worked frantically to coordinate military operations across dozens of star systems. "The situation is changing faster than we can track," Campbell reported. "The Council has started using biological weapons against civilian populations on worlds that support us. The Kepler system was hit yesterday. They released a plague that targets human genetic markers specifically." Elena felt sick at the news. The Kepler system contained humanity's largest research facility and nearly 2 million civilian scientists and their families. The Council's willingness to commit genocide was forcing even their most reluctant allies to reconsider their positions. Doctor Martin Clark's voice came through the communication system from his mobile laboratory, currently hidden in an asteroid field somewhere in the Perseus Arm. His psychological studies of alien behavior had become crucial to understanding how different species might react to the changing galactic situation. "The Council is making a critical mistake," Clark explained. They assume that fear will bring the galaxy back under their control, but they are creating exactly the opposite effect. Every atrocity they commit drives more species to believe that resistance is their only option for survival. The evidence was everywhere Elena looked. The aquatic hydrants had offered their ocean worlds as hidden bases for human operations after Council forces destroyed one of their peaceful research colonies. The silicon-based crystalline collective had begun sharing advanced sensor technology that made human stealth ships even more effective. Most surprisingly, a group of younger Eldari had broken away from their ancient leadership and approached humanity with an offer that could change everything. They brought with them knowledge accumulated over thousands of years, including detailed information about Council military capabilities and strategic weaknesses. Captain Wilson clicked his mandibles in the gesture that meant agreement among his people. The Chithari Industrial Union formally pledges our manufacturing capabilities to the Terran Alliance. Our factories can produce ships and weapons at rates the Council cannot match. Elena nodded gratefully. The alliance that was forming around humanity's resistance was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history, a coalition of equals rather than a hierarchy of dominance. Each species contributed their unique strengths while maintaining their independence and cultural identity. The communication board lit up with an urgent message from Fleet Admiral Chris Evans, who commanded the growing combined fleet that now included ships from 17 different species. His flagship, the human carrier New Terra, hung in space surrounded by vessels of every conceivable design and purpose. "We have a problem," Evans announced without preamble. "Council intelligence has learned about our base on Kepler Station. They are sending their largest battle fleet to destroy it completely. Over 200 ships, including their newest dreadnoughts." Elena felt her heart sink. Kepler Station was more than just a military target. It represented everything the new alliance was trying to build. Scientists from dozens of species worked together there, sharing knowledge and developing technologies that benefited everyone rather than serving the interests of a ruling elite. General Campbell leaned forward in his chair, his mind already working through tactical possibilities. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours, Evans replied. "We can evacuate most of the civilian population, but we will lose years of research and the symbolic victory the Council wants." Dr. Clark's voice carried a new urgency as he accessed the psychological profiles he had developed for each major Council species. "This is about more than destroying a base. They need a decisive victory to prove they are still in control. If Kepler Station falls without significant resistance, other species will start abandoning our cause." Elena understood the implications. Immediately, the alliance was held together by hope and mutual support, but it was still fragile. Too many defeats could cause it to collapse as species decided to make separate peace deals with the Council rather than face continued destruction. "What are our options?" she asked. Admiral Evans pulled up tactical displays showing the approaching Council fleet. "We can assemble 67 ships to defend the station, but we will be outnumbered more than 3-1. The Council is bringing everything they have. This is their attempt to end the rebellion with one massive blow." Captain Wilson's 4 eyes fixed on the display as he studied the enemy formation. "The Chithari have something that might help. Our newest ships carry quantum mines that can be deployed without detection. If we could get them into position before the battle begins." Elena felt a spark of hope. This was what made the alliance different from the Council's empire. Instead of rigid hierarchies and predetermined tactics, they could adapt and improvise based on the unique capabilities of each member species. Dr. Clark added his own piece to the developing plan. "The Council commanders expect us to either run away or fight a conventional battle. They have never faced a truly coordinated defense by multiple species working together as equals." The next 18 hours became a frantic race to prepare for. what everyone knew would be the most important battle of the war. Ships arrived from across the galaxy as species that had never cooperated before worked together to save something they all believed in. The Hydron, deep space swimmers brought their ability to hide large objects in what appeared to be empty space. The Crystalline Collective provided sensor networks that could track enemy movements across entire star systems. Even the rebel Eldari contributed ancient defensive technologies that had been forgotten for millennia. Elena coordinated the civilian evacuation while watching the incredible sight of dozens of species working together with perfect cooperation. Human engineers worked alongside Chithari technicians to modify alien weapons for human ships. Hydron navigators guided vessels through hyperspace routes that only their species knew existed. When the Council fleet finally arrived at Kepler Station, they found something they had never encountered before in thousands of years of galactic dominance. Instead of a desperate human outpost waiting to be destroyed, they faced a unified defense force representing the hopes and dreams of an entire galaxy that was tired of being ruled by fear. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when everything changed. Not because one side achieved total victory, but because for the first time in galactic history, the Council's enemies stood together as equals and refused to be defeated. Evans watched from his command bridge as the enemy fleet began their attack, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. They had no idea that they were about to face something that had never existed before. A truly united galaxy fighting for freedom rather than conquest. The war was far from over. But Elena knew that whatever happened at Kepler Station, the galaxy would never be the same again. President Karen Mitchell stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching as ships from 47 different species moved in perfect formation through the space around humanity's new diplomatic capital. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Kepler Station, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to the place where humans had once begged for acceptance at the council table. The old Galactic Council was gone, destroyed not by military conquest, but by the simple fact that most of its member species had chosen to join the Terran Commonwealth instead. The Vorthik had retreated to their crystal worlds and refused all contact with the outside galaxy. The Zephyrian hive mind had split into 12 separate factions that spent more time fighting each other than threatening anyone else. The Eldari remained divided between those who embraced change and those who mourned their lost empire. Admiral Chris Evans approached from the command center, his uniform now carrying insignia that represented not just humanity, but the entire Commonwealth fleet. The ships under his command included every type of vessel imaginable, from sleek human stealth fighters to massive Chithari, factory ships that could build new vessels while traveling between stars. The ceremony is ready to begin, Evans reported. Representatives from all member species have arrived, including some we never expected to see. Karen nodded as she watched a particularly unusual ship dock with the station. The sentient gas. Clouds of the nebula sector had no physical form as other species understood it, but they had sent a portion of themselves, contained in a specially designed vessel to participate in the historic gathering. Dr. Susan Taylor's voice came through the communication system from her research lab deep within the station. The latest breakthrough reports are ready for presentation. The combination of technologies from different species is producing results beyond anything we imagined possible. The research facility on New Geneva had become a symbol of what the Commonwealth represented, instead of the old Council's practice of hoarding knowledge and using it to maintain power. The Commonwealth encouraged all member species to share their discoveries freely. The results had been revolutionary. Human ingenuity combined with Chithari. Manufacturing precision had produced ships that could travel between galaxies in months instead of years. Hydron biological sciences merged with crystalline energy manipulation had created healing technologies that could repair damage that had previously been permanent. Even the rebel Eldari had contributed ancient knowledge that unlocked secrets the galaxy had forgotten. Captain Jake Morrison, now Director of Commonwealth Relations, joined the group on the observation deck. His diplomatic credentials had been restored, but his role had changed completely. Instead of begging for acceptance from superior powers, he now worked to ensure that all species could participate equally in galactic civilization. The Outer Rim territories have agreed to join us, Morrison announced. That brings our total membership to 93 species. The Commonwealth now includes more civilizations than the old Council ever managed to control. Karen smiled at the irony. The Council had ruled through fear and force, demanding submission from species that had no choice but to obey. The Commonwealth offered partnership and mutual benefit, and species were fighting for the chance to join. The ceremony began in the main assembly hall, a vast space designed to accommodate the environmental needs of every known form of life. Humans breathed normal atmosphere while aquatic species floated in specially designed tanks. Gas-based beings moved freely through sections filled with their preferred mixtures, while crystalline entities absorbed energy directly from the station's power grid. Admiral Evans took his place at the podium, his words being translated into hundreds of languages and communication methods. 2 years ago, we stood together at Kepler Station and proved that free beings could defend themselves against tyranny. Today, we establish something that has never existed before, a galactic civilization based on equality and cooperation instead of domination. The audience included beings that had once been mortal enemies. Chithari warriors sat beside the aquatic beings they had fought for centuries over water rights, their conflicts resolved through Commonwealth mediation rather than violence. Crystalline entities shared energy directly with species that had once mined their worlds, now working together to develop new forms of symbiotic technology. Dr. Taylor presented the scientific achievements that had come from species working together rather than in isolation. When knowledge is shared freely instead of hoarded for advantage, every species benefits. Our combined research has solved problems that had puzzled individual civilizations for thousands of years. The medical advances alone were staggering. Diseases that had plagued entire species for millennia had been cured through cross-species collaboration. The wasting plague that had nearly destroyed the Outer Rim colonies was eliminated when human genetic therapy was combined with hydrogen, regenerative techniques, and crystalline energy healing. President Mitchell addressed the assembly with words that carried across the galaxy through communication networks that now connected every inhabited system. The old council tried to rule through fear, keeping species separate and weak so they could never challenge established power. We have proven that strength comes from unity, not domination. The changes went far beyond technology and medicine. Trade flowed freely between species that had been restricted by council regulations designed to prevent any single civilization from becoming too prosperous or independent. Art and culture mixed in ways that created entirely new forms of expression. Young beings from dozens of species grew up together, learning that diversity was a source of strength rather than a threat to be eliminated. Jake Morrison watched as a group of human children played with young aliens of 6 different species in the station's recreation area. They communicated through a mixture of languages, gestures, and telepathic contact that would have been impossible under the old system's strict segregation policies. The next generation will grow up in a galaxy we could never have imagined, he observed to Karen. They will see cooperation as natural and think of conflict between species as something from ancient history. Not everything was perfect in the new order. Some species still struggled with concepts like individual rights and democratic participation. Others found it difficult to trust former enemies or share technologies they had guarded jealously for centuries. The Commonwealth's governing council spent as much time mediating disputes as making policy decisions. But even the problems were being solved.